My name is Brigitte Combs, and I grew up in a cult. My mother flew me to Dallas, Texas, and literally dropped me off in an ashram, a commune, where I stayed for almost 2 years before I saw my parents again. My mother was, as she tells it, she had a dear friend who passed away, and it caused her to want to seek answers to why are we here, what happens when we die, where did her friend go. It led her to, she was in a used bookstore and she found a book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. That's when she was introduced to the Hare Krishna movement. She went to a local temple there in Toronto, and that was it. One of the big beliefs is to renounce all of the material world, that everything in this world is the material and temporary nature, and that we ultimately want to think about the afterlife and going back to Godhead. In order to do that, one needs to learn from an early age to renounce all material life comforts and live an austere life. What you do in this life affects what happens in your next. So if you kill in this life, then you may be killed in your next life, and so on. Until you're 5 years old, you're not responsible for your own karma. Your parents are responsible for that. But once you turn 5, which is considered the age of accountability, you're now responsible for your own actions. And therefore, the guru advised, beginning at that age, that parents should send their children to these special schools, which we call, which is a Sanskrit term, Gurukula, to then learn how to renounce the material world.
We treat our dogs better than they treat the babies. Anybody that have a dog, they feed them good food, dog food, and they feed them in a nice container, a plate that was made for the dogs. I know I do. And you take care of this dog. But in Krishna case, as you look at this film, you can't help from shedding tears, where these babies have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, take a cold shower, and then start and chant for so many hours, and they eat off of the floor from a wax paper.
One of the times that happened, where I was having sort of the hallucinating or whatever it was, I was really sick. And so what I was told is that I had measles, and so measles had kind of gone around the ashram. And there was a point where I was like the only one, and there was a room where we often, if one was to be by themselves, get put in. It was probably kind of a big storage room, but it had nothing in it. And so I was secluded to this room with my blanket, and there was one time when they didn't have a light in the room, so somebody came and put like a little table lamp in there, plugged it in and put it on the floor. It didn't have a shade on it. It was just a lamp with a light bulb. And I was laying, again, I remember being cold and wrapping and doing all sorts to try to keep warm. And I was near this light, and I woke up and the room was full of smoke. And I came to realize that my blanket was burning. It was actually on fire. It was smoldering. What had happened was this lamp, I guess, had fallen over. I guess I knocked it down, had fallen over onto the blanket and literally started burning it. And thankfully, I was able to get away from it, move it, although it was all smoky, and I remember it stinking in there and trying to call for somebody and no one would come, the door was locked. Thankfully, it all kind of went out by itself, but That was pretty traumatic. It was pretty scary. We would go everywhere we went. We were in a line, and the line leader usually would carry a bell and ring a bell. I don't know why, but it was sort of a coveted thing. You wanted to be that person with the bell. And I got to be that person that day, and we were going across the courtyard, down the stairs into the basement where we stayed, where our ashram was. And there was a little girl, Palika, as I remember her name. She was kind of frail. I always remember feeling sort of motherly toward her, even at that age, sort of having to be careful with her. She somehow got in front of me at the, as we were going down the stairs into where our ashram is, and she fell. She just went down the stairs and she hit the bottom of the stairs and hit her head. She's laying there and her head split open. Blood was pooling on the floor, and it was like kind of like time stood still for a second, trying to take in what had happened and being freaked out. And next thing I knew, you killed her. You killed her.
You killed her.
I didn't do anything. Like, you hit her with that bell, didn't you? You hit her. You killed her. And I was trying to, in my head, like, I know I didn't do anything to her. Is she really dead? I was trying to figure this out, but I was just told that I had killed her, and was taken to the temple room where my clothes were taken off and I was beaten with something. So it would have been considered a great offense to be in front of the deities without clothes on. So I think at that time I was, even now I can remember being one thinking I didn't kill anybody, but if I did, like, oh my gosh, the karma, and then the offense that I was committing by being undressed in front of the deities, even though I was being hit. And then I was taken from there and I was locked into what was Srila Prabhupada's visiting quarters. He was the guru. So when he wasn't there, he had these quarters. I was taken there and I was left there and I was locked there in solitary for a period of days. I don't know how many days. I do remember, it would be light and then it would get dark and be light and getting dark, and using like a plant pot for a toilet and kind of hallucinating and being in and out of stuff and battling my mind if, like, I know I didn't kill her, but did I kill her? And seeing the vision. Sorry. Seeing that vision of her that's etched in my mind to this day. Eventually, someone came and got me out, and no one said anything else. She was gone. I still don't know to this day. I don't know what happened to her. I know I didn't push her. I know I didn't kill her. I know that, but it haunts me to this day. Sometimes I want to know more, but I don't pursue it because I don't know if I can handle it. Sometimes it's easier to just push things away.
There is an inconsistency between the way many devotees regard offenses committed to the leadership and child abuse. If I chose to remain silent about child abuse, that would be Vaishnava Parad of the highest order. Only when we acknowledge the extent of a problem can we begin searching for an appropriate solution. I realized that the long-term cost of my silence would have been greater and far more devastating than a disturbance I would cause by speaking up. ISKCON has centers in many undeveloped countries where children are at greater risk due to a lack of awareness. In India alone, there are several schools besides the ones I've mentioned. Without a strong and effective child protection system, we're bound to see more children suffer in the years to come. The problems in the flagship Gurukulas in Mayapur and Vrindavan highlight the need for greater caution and supervision in ISKCON schools worldwide. In order to find an adequate solution, there needs to be a paradigm shift in the values of the society as a whole. The best interests of the children need to become the paramount guiding principles for education in ISKCON.
One thing I would say is that if you ever have like a gut instinct, something deep inside you is telling you something isn't right or is right for you, like maybe listen to that. No matter how loud the people are that are telling you in the name of religion, the name of God, in the name of your father, or the name of society or whatever, that you have to be this way, this should be like this, you need to do this, no. Just stop and listen to what your gut tells you. It's okay. Another thing is just keep asking questions. Don't just accept things unless you're wanting to accept it. But don't accept something that someone tells you just because. Ask your own questions. Look into it, research it, develop your own thoughts on it. It's okay. It's okay to have your own thoughts. And do what you want to do in your life. It's your journey. It's not someone else's. So if you have the power, you go on your journey and let the other people do whatever they got to do. And if you can't, it's not just one thing. But if you've had, and everybody's had things that people who have hurt them, things that have been done wrong, doesn't mean that the hurt's going to go away, or you may not have residual effects from your experience as you grow, because they're always going to be part of you. But it's really helpful and freeing if you can get to a level of either forgiving or, if nothing else, accepting, rather than carrying bitterness and anger, because all that does is eat you alive, while whoever it is that offended you is going on their merry way. It's not bothering them, it's just killing you. So just keep trying. If you have a bad day, get up and the next days are that day's, a new day. And keep going.